Many thanks again for joining us on the program this morning on ITV. Beautiful Monday morning. Okay, we're counting up to the 26th of October. We're having the ITV Radio Pre-Independence Anniversary Lecture that will give way for the Miss ITV Bold and Fabulous Beauty Pageant, and finally climax with the ITV Radio Independence Awewe on 1st of October. While we're about that, we know in the political scene it's not so rosy. Of course, recently the Presidential Election Petitions Tribunal gave a judgment on the dispute between the PDP and the APC, between the candidate of the PDP, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, who is contesting the re-election of President Muhammadu Buhari. At the end of the day, the tribunal gave judgment in favor of President Muhammadu Buhari, dismissing all the petitions sought by the Atiku and his team. We know that just now, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar has hinted his intention to take the matter further by going to the apex court, and that's talking about the Supreme Court that has the final word on this matter. Talks started wagging that there are clandestine moves to ensure that judges who are playing to the bidding of the government of the day have the opportunity to be at the Supreme Court as fast as possible so they can be part of the panel. So today we're looking at expectations from the National Judicial Council on the one hand and the Chief Justice of Nigeria to ensure that only qualified persons who have met the right criteria make it to the Supreme Court and then are part of the panel that will eventually look into the matter. Our guest on the program today, your guest is as good as mine, that they are erudite analysts, legal luminaries who can give insights into all of these issues, taking us down memory lane, giving us historical perspectives, pedigrees, and what have you, in order to have a firm discussion this beautiful Monday morning. Let me thank very specially Sir Adams Aliyu, is a constitutional lawyer, a notary public, and a public affairs commentator. Is also a political analyst. Barrister Adams Aliyu, many thanks for joining us.
Good morning, moderator. Thank you, viewers.
I also have with us in the studio Barrister Awo Osage, is also a constitutional lawyer and a public affairs commentator. Many thanks for joining us on the program.
My pleasure, thank you, and hello viewers at home.
We're expecting Pastor Collins Okonofa to join this conversation, and just to remind you that he's also a lawyer, and so as soon as he gets here he will join the discussion. But remember, you can follow the program using any of our social media handles just to ensure that you keep tabs with all the discussions that we'll be having this beautiful Monday morning. Of course, the Supreme Court has the final say, is the final arbiter as far as this matter is concerned, and surely when that decision is taken, the whole matter about the debate will be laid to rest once and for all. But as it is now, the parties to the case still have ample opportunities to take the matter further and seek redress and seek justice and ensure that they're satisfied with whatever decision that the courts will take. But one thing that has been on in the last couple of days, really, majorly within this month of September, tribunals have been giving judgment left, right, back, center, either upholding or upturning election results. But I think in most of the tribunal judgment, they've been predicted to go that way, and they actually went that way. Take, for example, the one for Anambra State now involving Ihedioha, and then, of course, take, for example, several of them. But one thing he said, I think the one for Oyo State, Oyo State won by, I think, the PDP and several others. And then for Zamfara State, the incumbent governor there, or the governor who won the election, when the governorship election took place, the tribunal upheld his election, and several others. So let's welcome Pastor Collins Okonofa. Pastor Collins, many thanks for joining us on the program TMI.
Thank you, my pleasure to be here.
Always a delight to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now let's just talk, begin our conversation this morning by looking at what has come forth from the tribunals so far. Before we get to the presidential election tribunals, I believe we've been following events as they unfold with the election petitions tribunal, not just in Edo State, but across the federation, particularly the governorship election. Are you satisfied with the outcome so far, Barrister Adamson? Let me start off with you.
Yeah, very well, because the court remains the last hope of the common man. And ipso facto, it's only normal in civilized society to assess the court for redress. Since the presidential system of government started in 1979, there was a presidential election in 1979. Chief Obafemi Awolowo lost that election. He went to court. I don't want to move into the variables or the outcome, but he went to court. Then there was an interregnum of military, and by 1993, Enko Abiola contested presidential election. Although the final result was not given, but it was clear that he was leading. And so, with his own interpretation, he decided to announce himself as president, which he was treasonable. He went to jail and unfortunately died in this. Thereafter, 1999 presidential election, Obasanjo won the election. 2003, 2007, 2011, in all these cases, Buhari contested. Every time he lost, he went to court. It's only in 2015 that Jonathan lost presidential election and did not go to court. 2019 now, a loser is going to court. So what I'm trying to say is that going to court is a civilized way of seeking redress. Nobody should be discouraged. The law will say, Fortuna audaces juvat. Fortune favors the bold. Fortuna audaces juvat. So it is quite normal in civilized society, democratic setting, to go to court. As for the Electoral Petition Tribunal, ordinarily for the House of Assembly and gubernatorial elections, the Court of Appeal is the zenith. But for presidential election, the apex court, the Supreme Court, is the apogee, it is the denouement, the final. So anybody who seeks redress for there is acting within the confines of the law.
Okay.
They should be encouraged to do so and not be discouraged.
Okay. All right, Mr. Awosage, I'd like to get your insight into, besides the Presidential Election Tribunal, which is the main thrust of our discussion, what has been coming forth from the Governorship Election Tribunal across the country? As I said before, some were predicted to go in the way they went, others were not so predictable. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Once again, it's a pleasure. I will quickly say that the issues that have to, or that have gone to court, I don't think it's what we belabel, as it were, in as much as I love what Michael Zekoman said, SAN. He said, I am not particularly comfortable with this, but we still have, room to move ahead to the Supreme Court, as it were. So it's not for lawyers to start dilly-dallying in how it, lawyers think law and they operate in that dimension, in as much as we have a whole lot of reservations, so to speak. Those reservations are subsumed in the law. If the law was applied and then you feel the way it was interpreted by the tribunal, then you can contest it. It's contestable.
Yeah.
So it's something you come out not on the pages of newspaper, social media platform, how some judges have been brought over, somebody is definitely going to win.
Yeah.
So that has always been my take in it. If you have come, many a times, the larger population and folks don't really know the nitty-gritty of this thing. They just feel, well, we have all of this. You may have your evidence that's not admissible. Until it has some certain limitations on the time. You remember the case of Chris Ngige and Peter Obi that went over 3 years and before judgment was entered. But now you can't have such again. You can't, because you are limited by 180 days.
Okay.
So even if you have the good case on ground, the ordinary man will not see that.
Yeah.
But the juries, they know that you cannot prove this case. It's like you have 10 days to feature about 250,000 witnesses.
Yes.
How will you do that? What miracle? Even if they have to sleep there, they know this one is a done deal. Or will you go over the Shegun Oni and the Shegun Oni and Fayemi? That went on, and then, at the end of the day, they started by, it's not that what you are coming with does not have ingredients in it.
Time has
expectation of time.
Yeah.
So it's that judgment, it cannot be entered again because it started by now. So these are issues the general public should be made to know. I think they should make more of legal sensitization. And again, we must not rule out the fact that politicians will always be politicians. They always want to. I love what Falana said. They should leave judiciary out of what they are doing. Judiciary will always play their part, and they are tied by the law. They play it like that and say, well, let's go to the courts. And at the end of the day, they will not give what was not written down. They will not interpret law that they don't have.
Okay.
But I don't like Pa Adams now, and then he had come with a good application. Okay, let me I don't want to go into it. Okay, we talked about the president's certificate and all of that. I know you love to talk about that.
Yeah.
But, that thing is started by. Okay, what are you talking about again? And you are still coming with that strength and trying to box around. They have not said you must come with a certificate. You must be schooled through that, that extent. And that is the position.
Okay.
So when you are not coming that he didn't have certificate, or is it Deleke that you said somebody wrote for him? Was he schooled? Is this certificate we are arguing whether you have it or not? Or that he's schooled, or whether you were schooled?
Yeah.
See, these are the conflicting facts that many of our people don't know, and I must encourage our lawyers that are also headstrong into election petition. I think they should also be very, very tactical and try to advise clients properly, and there are things that should not really go to that
I think
extent.
that's also going to be part of our discussions today, to look at the role the bar, not the bench now, is playing in all of these cases, because sometimes it does look like, well, this is a fait accompli, as you guys will say.
Yes.
But we still push ahead, we go to court, do all the debate, do all the discussion. But that will be later on in the course of the program. Let me come to Pastor Collins here. Looking at the whole judgment that have come forth for states across the federation, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'll just say that I've been pretty much satisfied with the judgments across the states, from Delta to Akwa Ibom to Imo to Oyo. The only state that we're right now waiting for its judgment with bated breath is Kano State. We have Ganduje and the other guy from the PDP. All right, that's going to be a very dicey one, and we're waiting with bated breath for them. But for the other states, so far, I should say that I'm pretty much satisfied. Those states were, well predicted. I mean, they know that the ones that INEC declared to be winners actually won those elections. Okay, and the tribunals, to a large extent, have dispensed justice, for which many of us are pretty much satisfied. All right, we're just waiting for Kano State because we know what happened in Kano State.
Okay, I heard you laugh, Pastor Wusagi, and I'm sure you laugh because even though we know what happened, or some say they know what happened in that particular election, but some of these technicalities may be a hindrance. That's the point you were trying to raise just now, Pastor Wusagi.
Absolutely. You see, we know what happened. But what happened is not what will be canvassed in court, I say. It must be, the rules must be abided.
Absolutely.
So that is just the issue.
Okay.
So even if you say, well, I saw this man, he was doing this, I saw man, the IG or whatever, the commissioner and all of those, somebody taken to a police station with immunity and all of that. Even if all those drama played out, at the end of the day, those things are, you can't just throw it to the court. You must come through this same standard and procedure that is required. Right. So that's why I was laughing.
Okay, but you laughed too because it looks like you share the same sentiment.
Yes, very well. Many of these things are thrown out due to lack of diligent prosecution. The judges will tell you with the facts available before us, before me. The judges were not there. So you have to prove your case beyond reasonable doubt. If it lacks diligent prosecution, the judge is not a wizard, and the evidence before him, before the courts, is not enough to grant your prayers. The case will be thrown out, usually at the benefit of the defendant. So if you want to go to court, be armed with witnesses, be armed with evidence to corroborate and justify. Otherwise, if the prosecution lacks diligence, it will be thrown out.
Okay, so just to establish the tone of this discussion, now let's look at the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal. The judgment has been given by Muhammad Garuba, who led that, the honorable justices who participated in that. You gave us historical perspectives on Presidential Election Petitions Tribunal, particularly as it relates to the present president, current president. Were you satisfied with the outcome of the tribunal judgment?
Oh, very okay.
Yes, I'm asking.
Very well, because accusations were made.
Yes.
One of them was that the president did not attach certificates, is not qualified, and here the facts are legion. You must belong to a political party. You must be educated up to school certificate level. The school was not defined to be primary school, secondary school in the constitution, and educated up to. It didn't say you should write exam, pass it, make grade 1 or 2. It said you should be educated up to school certificate level equivalent. And what do you call education? Education is all embracing. I was going through my British history and British constitution. The Queen of England never went to school, never wrote any examination. She was educated at home with Elizabeth, now 93 years. When she became the higher apparent, they gave her teacher to come and teach her and go away. So he never wrote any exam and had no certificate. I got it fact from British history. So are you not going to say that the person has no certificate or is not educated? So education, people used to look at the word education with West African school certificate, East African school certificate. It's neither here nor there. Constitution says you should be educated to the equivalent of school certificate level, and so be it. So many of these things were not proved, and so the judgment went as it were. Okay. And it is now gone to the Supreme Court, because appeals can lie directly from court of from tribunal to the Supreme Court, whereas in National Assembly or gubernatorial, it can dovetail to the Court of Appeal. So we expect justice to be done. It will be prejudicial, preemptive, presumptive, and malafide, in bad faith, to anticipate or trying to put stargazing glasses to announce the judgment of the Supreme Court. We should wait for the law to take its course.
Absolutely.
The preponderance of evidence will determine that.
Absolutely. Mr. Osage, what are your thoughts, maybe misgivings, about the outcome of the tribunal judgment for the presidential election?
Thank you very much. The judges, they are not magicians, and they will not act outside the relevant and available laws. They will not use their native wisdom, so to speak, and say your head look like I think you lied. You know those days when we were children. They say, look at the way you are scared now. You are the one that did it. You know, they are not going to operate like that. So it's so clear. In short, I don't want to make comments like this because I am personally not partisan. And when I talk, they say you are trying to. I have known this will be from the onset. Honestly, I have known, and I've predicted it to be like this. And subsequently, even in as much as say we shouldn't put on a stargazing glasses to predict the outcome. It's not far-fetched. It's not far-fetched in the real sense of it.
Okay.
So it's a matter of, well, but I think we have a challenge with the, you know, with our electoral acts. I think that is where we really have a bulk of challenge. And where I would want to blame politicians, you know, when you are benefiting today, you feel, well, you are all there. I heard some parties say we're going to be in charge for another 60 years. So regardless of what we are doing, you know, no. I saw what Bukola Saraki, the Senate president, you know, he was trying to come up with, and his men coming with electoral, who will now sign that, who will assign to it? You know, why did the former president not do that? He benefited at that time. You would think Muhammadu Buhari will now assign to it. That would be funny. You know, so it's going to be done. These are some of the issues we are really having, not the judges, not the justices, with all respect to them. I'm not saying it because I'm a lawyer. I'm saying because they can't do more than what is before them.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, we have coming back to the drawing board to re-amend and look at all the necessary laws that need to be abrogated and brought in and to have a good society. Because as it stands today now, I know a lot of people are now moving around saying that you can just go and depose to affidavit and then you cannot have, somebody said he's not a professor. You know, I can see my friend says he's not a professor. Don't ask me how. I deposed to an affidavit and I'm not a professor. That's not all about it. You know, it's not the making of Buhari. Buhari did not do anything. He's just benefiting from what is on ground. So why, if you want to blame, I wouldn't blame him because he's an upcoming person, he's a new man in the game. They have been men, they have been there. Obasanjo have been there, Yaradua, Juna, and all these men over time. Why would they not look at it intently? And these are the issues and the real issues. We must tell ourselves the truth. In as much as it has turned out this way, we are not happy. The international community, they are not happy, but we cannot do more than what is before us. Ordinarily, okay, look at this man now. I just a little digressing it away from Aro Kelly, a well-known musician, well celebrated all over the world. He has been sentenced to jail for 20 years. And he wept. He wept. No, he wept because that's for the very first time. Your wrongdoing is not staring you. You are not being punished for the wrong done. You see, in our system now, people get away with wrongdoings, and that's why the public, the general masses, are not happy. What they should clamor for is not to attack the judges. It's that it should be. It should be conducted a protest. We must review this thing. We must review our electorals. We must start asking questions. You can even hire lawyers. I know a lot of people that call lawyers to come and enlighten them, and then they will start canvassing along that line. So I think that is what Nigerians should do, not to attack the judiciary. Okay. The judiciary have nothing to do or change. They are only operating by the laid down rules and regulations. Okay. I think that is my own take in it.
Mr. Collins, when the judgment came out, I heard some people say that the panel that sat over the presidential election petitions tribunal, particularly on the day of judgment, that there were things that the defendants didn't put forward that were introduced into the judgment. It was like a case of those who were supposed to be the arbiter in the case now making case for the defendants. I don't know what your thoughts are if you heard stuff like that.
Thank you very much. I have a lot to say concerning that judgment, and I would be disagreeing with my two colleagues here in regards to that judgment for many reasons. Number one, the PDP and Atiku were not contesting the fact that Buhari was educated up to school certificate level. But what the PDP was saying was that Buhari committed perjury. He lied on oath, all right, that he had a certificate, which he was unable to produce. And from CF001 indicates that the certificate that you claim to have should be attached to the form, which Buhari didn't do. Now, instead of doing that, he attached an affidavit that he left he believed that his certificate was with the Army Board. The Army came out to deny that there was any such certificate in their possession. All right, now the onus was therefore on Buhari to produce that certificate, for which reason he invited WAEC or whoever to bring a phantom certificate. Now that was the basis on which the judges were expected to give a judgment, not whether he was educated up to, and to hear the judges say that Buhari at his age cannot lie. I mean, what since when did age come to decide who's lying or who's telling the truth? All right, and then it was like the judges themselves were shopping for evidence for the defendant. In other words, exactly with what you have said, they changed from being arbiters to becoming defendants. They began to help the defense to shop for evidence and to bring up evidence and to say things that the defendants themselves did not canvass. So and they have opened a new vista in legal jurisprudence. I mean, when they say that you do not necessarily have to attach or present your certificate. All you have to do is to swear to an affidavit. I mean, my God, where does that exist? I heard Paradigm say just now, I was talking about Queen. I'm like, what's the connection between Queen and presidential election?
Education.
What's the connection? The Queen is not elected. All right, whether she has primary school certificate or not, she's the Queen. All right, so there's no connection between what we're talking here now and about the Queen. We're talking about the fact that the Constitution says now you are open to choose any window that you want to depend on. You can say that I am educated up to school certificate level without adducing any evidence to that effect. All you can say is that I attended secondary school up to school certificate level, bam, and rely on that. But if you say that I have a school certificate, and then you are compelled by law to produce it, which you did not do. So the PDP is saying that you perjured, you lied on oath because you did an affidavit. All right, and that's the basis on which the judges were expected to give judgment. Did this man lie or not? And I heard them say the man was too old to lie. What kind of justice is that? The man was too old to lie. Who is too old to lie? Whoever is too old to lie. All right, so that became the one of the grounds on which this case is to be taken to the Supreme Court. We are also expecting too that the Supreme Court will do justice, because if they do not give judgment on this issue, all right, it will spoil a whole lot of things for Nigeria and destroy the credibility of the certificates that Nigerians carry all over the world. Because now, even though he mentioned it jokingly that one Keke Napep rider says now he's the professor, but yes, that's what the law says. That's what the law says now. That's what the legal jurisprudence has now opened. A man can profess to be whatever by swearing merely to an affidavit and say, without attaching the result. By an affidavit that he swears to, I am now a professor, and you cannot dispute it. And that's what the law says as you and I speak now, unless it is upturned at the Supreme Court, which I do hope they will for the sake of Nigeria and our future. Okay. All right, because if they don't, a lot of things will go wrong for our country. It's not about, article is not, I mean, I will be surprised, to be honest with you, if the Supreme Court upturns the judgment of the appeal court. And this is not, it is not because article does not have a weighty case. It is because our judiciary, I'm sorry to say, and with all due respect, has been largely compromised. And to that extent, I mean, so many other factors come to play. Even the CJN, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, his own certificate is in dispute. So how do you expect that kind of man to adjudicate on the certificate matter? So we have problems. So and this is the same CJN who is to empanel the tribunal that will hear that case. A man whose own certificate matter is in dispute, all right, or contention. that's, to that extent, I don't expect to see much coming from you. It will be a miracle, all right? But for the sake of establishing facts of law, let us know what the law says finally on this issue in this country.
Okay.
So we know now what stands, whether I can use my affidavit to apply for a job, or I must produce my certificate. All right, and this is the reason why article is going to court.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. It's the TMI Monday. We'll take a short break, and then we'll be right back to talk more. Remember, the matter is soon to go to the Supreme Court, talking about the dispute over the 2019 presidential election. And we are aware that a panel will soon be constituted by the Supreme Court, headed by the Chief Justice of Nigeria. And there's a couple of talks along those lines. We'll take a break. We'll be back with you in a moment.
TMI, every opinion counts.
Thanks again for rejoining me on the program TMI Monday. Okay, now expectations are high that due process will be followed in the constitution of the Supreme Court panel to hear the presidential election dispute between former Vice President Alhaji Atiku Abubakar and President Muhammadu Buhari. Now, by starting to you, let me get you to kick us off on that plank. What is the tradition set in constituting the Supreme Court panel for the presidential election?
Well, the Constitution is our God known. It says in section 230, from 230 to 236 is about the Supreme Court. And that 231, sub 1, the appointment of a person to the office of the Chief Justice of Nigeria shall be made by the President on recommendation of the National Judicial Council, subject to ratification by the Senate. The Chief Justice has since been appointed. We know him. Okay. And he's a man of integrity. I was in Accra, Ghana recently, and I confirmed that Walter Onoge, his predecessor, he left University of Legon in 1977, was well qualified. The next person to the Chief Justice now is Bode Rose Vivor. He was a 73 UNILAG. He was in law. I was in foreign languages, contemporary. These are men of integrity because they go by seniority. So Bode Rose Vivor is the most senior person now next to the Chief Justice. So for the justices of the Supreme Court, they have to be 15 years at the bar. The President will appoint on the recommendation of the National Judicial Council, and the Senate will ratify. So anybody who is more than 15 years could be appointed. There should be maximum of 21, but 5 can form the quorum to 6. Okay. And it is the apex court, the apogee, the denouement. From there, you don't appeal to anywhere. Okay. And Supreme Courts have been known over the world to be very reputable. Okay. In East Africa, for instance, a presidential election was obtained. In Ghana, a couple of years ago, Supreme Court obtained a presidential election and the incumbent president was removed. But in Nigeria, it has never happened. There's no precedent that the sitting president was obtained at the Supreme Court. But it cannot be barred from happening. I was in the gubernatorial team that stood for Shomole 207-208. And the city governor was obtained by the court. So it is not an impossibility. Professor Sumba was governor. We went to court. We were led by Niyi Akintola, senior advocate of Nigeria. And we won the case. So it has never happened in this country, and it may happen. So we should come to equity with clean hand and have open mind, not always being pessimistic or prejudicial or presumptive or pessimistic and not have faith in the Supreme Court.
Okay. All right. Let me come to Barrister Awosage. I just want to take an excerpt from a recent press release by a civil society organization, Nigeria Center for Justice and Rule of Law. They alleged plots to deviate from the tradition of using senior judges to handle Atiku's appeal. Is an allegation, but this is the ground for the allegation. Presently, the 7 most senior judges in the Supreme Court are Justice Ibrahim Tanko Muhammad, who is the CGN.
Yes.
Then you have Justices Bode Rhodes Vivo, which we talked about.
Yes.
Then Justice Neri Odili and Justice Wali Sylvester Oguta. Others are Justice Olukayode Aruwola and Justice Musa Datijo Muhammad and Justice Kumai Bayang Akas. Now, recently there was a fast-track interview of 3 members of the panel that participated in the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal with a view to bringing them to the Supreme Court. And this NGO, or this civil society organization, is alleging that that was part of the grand design to ensure that only those who are favorably disposed to the government of the day form part of the panelists at the Supreme Court. Is there any substance in this allegation, Barrister Awosagi?
Thank you very much. Like I said, and you see, we can argue from now to the next word. Those allegations are just mere allegations. It does not have any outer of weight in it. Even if you want to argue. Now, you know what it means to be a justice of the Supreme Court. In as much as the rule is okay, or in order of seniority, and if they don't go by the order of seniority, what law have they violated? What's the consequences? That's what we should be asking, of not going by that. If there are clear reasons, are you not to decide for the NJC on what to do? You see, like I said before, if you don't have, like I've often told my clients, if you can't trust me, then there's no way I could work for you as a lawyer, because you need to trust me first. If you don't trust the justices, and you are trying to shop for this man or that woman, that judge, that justice rather, is favorably disposed. This is law. This is law. It has nothing to do with who is favorably disposed. If you do something wrong, it will be evident, it will be clear.
Okay.
So that's my honest position.
So you don't see anything wrong?
I don't see anything wrong. I don't see anything wrong.
The tradition that has been said that the most senior 7 justices participate in the panel. You don't see anything wrong with that?
I don't see anything wrong in it.
Okay.
I don't see anything wrong in that. And then on the quick one, we left some matters hanging. My uncle has made a position, which I quite appreciate. He explained, and my own take is this. In as much as we have this situation on ground, what do? We did not talk, we talked about we have not, you said the perjured and the lied, and you have not, that thing is a criminal allegation.
Okay.
Has it been dispensed with in a criminal court? Has Buhari, do you expect the Supreme Court? At the Supreme Court, that's not what will be attended to there. So these are some of the issues I was trying to bring up at the earlier stage.
Okay.
We know, I was laughing when I saw a barhead man with a certificate. I was laughing, where is this one coming from? You and I, we cannot just look at it. So the Supreme Court will not decide on that. No, you must prove it. First of all, go and prove that this is fake. It's not because I just conclude. Which criminal court have tried Buhari? No criminal court. So I'm not a fan of President Muhammadu Buhari.
Okay.
I'm only speaking
based on the law.
Based on the law.
Based on your interpretation of
yes, whatever you say. Whatever you say. So basically, if you take it from that angle, there is nothing they will say there.
Okay.
There is nothing they will say there. Now this civil society,
CGN panel
alleging this and that.
Yes.
That is not the issue. So long you are a judge, or rather a justice, you qualify to be. 15 years. You have been there. That is what the Constitution didn't say, well, this is all that we are saying. It's just their way of this how you go. Is it written there that black and white that it must be in this order? Okay. It's not everything. Or maybe when you are presiding, you drink some water at 7 times, and if I say I'm coughing, then you shouldn't cough too much. These are some of, I think these are just a way of trying to get unnecessary sympathy. I don't think it's the best way to go. If you must believe first that these men are men of honor, and they are going to do the needful. Okay. Because if you start having such feeling, you already send a bad message and a bad signal to the people, and then you are losing faith. Anything they do, you won't believe it. Okay, how about tomorrow they turn the judgment, and then will you now go back and say, those men that I suspected, okay, they did the needful? What will you be saying?
Okay.
So it's too early to
All right,
making...
Pastor Collins, what are your thoughts on this allegation?
There's a lot to say about it, and I'm surprised that this is the response of my colleagues here. That there's been a tradition. I mean,
tradition, not law.
There's been a tradition.
It's a tradition, not law.
All right, that the most senior justices in the courts are the ones that sit on presidential election petitions. Okay, this has been a tradition over time. Yes. Now, on what basis now? What is the basis now for changing that tradition? Yes, it is not law, but what is the basis now for changing that tradition?
It's not to
What is the basis now for changing the tradition? On what basis are you suspecting that one of the senior justices who by reason of his position in the judiciary or in the Supreme Court, are you suspecting that he will not be favorably disposed towards this case? Is the reason why you are bringing somebody from beneath him? Would you not be the greatest travesty of justice for a judge who sat on a matter at the appeal court to be the same one to come and sit on the same matter at the Supreme Court? So I'm appealing to the same judge who gave me injustice. Will that not be a travesty of justice? I mean, how do you imagine that can ever stand to reason? Okay. Besides, what is wrong with the same justices sitting at the Supreme Court right now by reason of seniority to sit on the presidential election petition tribunal? What is wrong with them? Is anything wrong with them? Have they found them culpable? Are they not competent? So we say there's nothing wrong with it. It's law. The Chief Justice is at liberty to pick whoever he wills. So what is wrong with the tradition? Is what we should be asking. Shouldn't any reasonable person smell a rat in this matter? That you are going to pick justices who have just been elevated as a mark of gratitude for a job well done at the appeal courts. So and the gratitude was very fastly granted. They gave it to them very quickly. All right, and then move up quickly, go and wait for the same matter that you are educated upon at the appeal court. I mean, that would be the greatest travesty of justice. And I'm surprised that my friends here have not alluded to. Besides, I mean, my brother said that the case of perjury has not been canvassed. I wonder whether I followed the case, because that was indeed the position that the PDP was canvassing. That not that President Buhari did not attend school. Besides, I mean, he's talking about who has proved the case of forgery. There is no case of forgery because no certificate was produced. There was none produced. He didn't produce any. He said it was with the Army Board. Army said we don't have it. He went to Cambridge, that the Chief of Staff, who is now the acting president, now brought. All right, and that was never presented to the tribunal. That's not and stay on course. There is no acting president. There is the vice president. All right, and Mr. President is going for the the president announced that all ministers, everybody wanted to see to pass to the Chief of Staff. What does that make the man? Chief Minister. What does that make him? Even the Vice President has to pass to him. What does that make him? He didn't say the Vice President should pass to him. We all of them together. Have you not seen how that the President is whittling down the powers of the Vice President? He said all ministers, the ministers should go through. What is the Vice President? Yes. What is the Vice President? If he's not careful, under a president like what Obasanjo tried to do to Atiku, a vice president can be lower than a minister. The vice president has as much powers as the president confers on him. Now, whatever powers this Buhari has given to Sibajo so far, they are being cut down drastically. In fact, most of his staff have been driven out of Aso Rock. What does that mean? All right, you see, in the scheme of things right now, the Chief of Staff, this is a digression, of course, the Chief of Staff is senior to the Vice President in the operation of Aso Rock business. I'll come back to this point. We'll come to that. But now, the Chief of Staff he went to Cambridge. Now, by the rules of Cambridge, or examination bodies, no third party collects a certificate on behalf of somebody. The person who owns the certificate is the one that collects. So how did Chief of Staff collect a Cambridge certificate? Besides, he never canvassed that he owned the Cambridge certificate in his appeal. He never canvassed that he had a Cambridge certificate. What he led evidence to us to believe was that he had a school certificate result. Okay. And that's the point that's been made. The point is, if you say you have the result, produce it. Produce it. He who alleges proves. Now, there's a point at which the onus rests on the defendant now to produce evidence. Yeah. You have to produce evidence. If you claim that I have this material in my possession, you have to produce evidence to substantiate it, which he did not do. All right, and PDP is saying that the man lied, and that's what we believe, that he lied. And there's no age, there's no age barrier. After a man has attained this age, he can no longer lie. The law does not say that when you attain a certain age, you can no longer lie. The man lied. With all due respect to President Buhari, we are saying that he lied on oath because he swore to an affidavit, and he did not produce the certificate. And the form that he filled to contest for election states that the certificate must be attached. And he did not attach it. Okay. So how can you get past that?
So that's the perjury you're talking about.
That's it.
Okay, let me pursue there. If we already have 7 members of the Supreme Court, all right, and all that you require is just 5 to form the panel to entertain the matter, why this seeming alleged rush to upgrade new entrants into the
Supreme Court,
to the Supreme Court, as it were? You already have 7. I read the names of the 7 most senior judges. I mean, in Supreme Court, there are already 7. Yeah, all you need is 5. Yeah,
it's a reward for a job well done.
Now, this is a very important national issue.
Of course,
I will not be carried away by sentimental flabbiness. The constitutional lawyer be guided by 231 sub 3 that any person to be qualified to hold office of justice of the Supreme Court must be appointed by the president or recommendation of the agency and confirmed by the Senate. All these other aberrations, tangential interpretations don't come in. Okay. The 5 people who will sit in that court, they have to be appointed by the president. Okay. They would have been judges for 15 years. Mm-hmm. And I think any of them means that. Okay. And the other sentimental issue, which I regard as laughable, here is Muhammadu Buhari. He contested election in 2003. He lost. Nobody quarreled about his certificates. He contested 2007. He lost. Nobody quarreled. He contested 2011. He lost. All this one, they went to court. No, there was no presidential law that didn't go to court upon Jonathan. It is only because he won in 2015 that the certificate issue is now coming up. He had been contesting for 6 years and was losing. Okay. Heaven did not fall. So these are sentimental issues, but will be guided by the Constitution. The insinuation by a group of people raising false alarm, crying wolf that look, they want to bring people who have been brought over, that constitution does not arise. Okay. Because 231 sub 3 says a judge of the Supreme Court has to be qualified, 15 years in bar, appointed by president, ratified by president. So any of them, if so facto choosing, can sit in the panel.
Okay, let me ask Barrister Awu Osagi this question, which is that those that have been penciled down, I believe maybe have been interviewed by the National Judicial Council with the possibility of being promoted to the Supreme Court. We have 3 of the appeal court Justices Muhammad El Garuba, Abdul Aboki, and Samuel Useji. They sat at the Presidential Election Petitions Tribunal that upheld Buhari's election. Okay. And then others who are being touted to be upgraded, you have Emmanuel A. Ajim, Biobele A., George Will, and Helen M. Ogunmiju. All right? Now, the 7 most senior judges are listed their names out. And the question that I asked by Adam Salih, of course, he read that to us in the Constitution. There are 5 people from amongst that 7 and from a quorum at the Supreme Court. Now, Barrister, would you be surprised if someone like Muhammad Garuba, who was the head of the presidential election, is upgraded into the Supreme Court and it becomes part of the panel that hears the matter? Would you be surprised?
I won't be surprised.
Jesus Christ.
Listen, you see, Fidel Castro made a statement. He said to be moral in an immoral society is immoral. All we are talking about now, it didn't start today. I'm not in any way trying to say they are going to be brought in.
So if it didn't start today, we should continue with it. That's what you're saying?
No. In trying to, I just made a statement that the Electoral Act itself have a whole lot of issues. Now, what are the yardsticks at which they have been upgraded, as it were?
15 years.
Yes, 15 years at the bar. And they have been.
Qualified.
Now, in as much as we know that, why the urgency? I know that's what people are saying. Why now?
Why the urgency? Yeah.
Why now?
Yeah.
That's what everybody's asking.
Yeah.
Malam Anasi El-Rufai, they said you are dashing lands to your friends. You are giving your friends preference. He said, will I do that to my enemies? I'm just talking philosophically now.
Not legally.
Now, look, I just said that now. Now, the point I'm making is this. Those men that have been upgraded, are they qualified? This is the Constitution.
Yes.
Sorry, sir.
Yes.
Are they qualified by this Constitution? Yes, sir. They are. But why are we not suspecting that maybe the president is doing something? Oh, it's on in the arena of suspicion. Yes, it's suspicion. Well, if maybe tomorrow they are now seated in that panel, I will not be comfortable. I will be disappointed. I will not be happy about it because I don't expect them to climb there and sit. But there's no way. There's no legal way to say you have done something wrong.
Okay.
That is the angle I'm looking at.
Okay.
But I don't expect them to go there and take their seat. I believe we should do things in order.
Well, you won't be surprised.
Okay.
Why would I be surprised?
Let me take over from here now. The question I want to ask is that I think Haja Bukachua was the president of the Court of Appeal, and she was supposed to head the Presidential Election Petitions Tribunal. And then there was this public outcry across the country from legal luminaries, the opposition, even the candidates themselves. Eventually, she excused herself, and then Muhammad Garuba was made to head it. It really didn't change anything. Okay. So now, what have you got to say along those lines in view of this outcry over this?
When the SGF, the former SGF, the grass cutter SGF, remember, I don't remember his name. All right, that one. When he now agreed to leave, he now recommended his cousin, who is now Boss Mustafa, who is now the SGF. So if people thought I have lost, take SGF. Now, in the same way as Bukachua left, you say you don't want this woman, we will give you a better replacement, who will even do better justice for us than Bukachua would have done. Now, what is the purpose of an appeal? The purpose of an appeal is let somebody else look at this matter. Different from the way you have looked at it. Let's see if we'll get justice from this other person. Now, that's why I say to be the greatest travesty of justice, for you to upgrade these same justices who gave the judgment at the Court of Appeal to the Supreme Court and put them on the same panel to hear the appeal on the judgment that you gave at a lower court. That would be a travesty of justice. As a matter of fact, I don't believe that will ever happen. I don't believe it will ever happen. And again, I mean, the question that my brother asked just now, I mean, what's the urgency? What's the urgency? Why must they be upgraded now? Oh yes, okay, they have spent 15 years at the bar. Is it all the judges that have spent 15 years at the bar that are in the Supreme Court? Must they go to the Supreme Court now because they have spent 15 years at the bar? What's the urgency? Why must it be them? Are there not other judges who have spent 15 years at the bar who qualify to be promoted, upgraded to the Supreme Court? Why must it be the same judges? And at this time, if you don't smell a rat, you can never smell anything in your life.
That's on moral ground.
Yeah, if you don't smell a rat, that means there's something fishy, definitely, obviously. And we must point it out. We are Southerners, we're in the South. We don't know the intrigues that are going on. All right? A way to perpetuate, I'm on TV and I say this with all sense of responsibility. The things, at the federal high court level right now, Justice John Soho is the one who should be confirmed as the substantive head chief judge of the federal high court. We hear that there are some intrigues going on right now. Ordinarily, his name and the name of another judge should be submitted to the NJC for recommendation as the chief judge. Now, instead of the next judge after John Soho is also a Christian judge. Now they have added a third name now, a judge coming from Katsina State, Buhari State, as a judge that it should be they have given recommendation to the NJC. And I can swear with everything that I know that third judge will be the one that will be approved.
Speculative.
It's speculative. I have the right to speculate.
Yes, it's speculative.
I have the right to speculate.
I will really not take us anywhere. Why don't we wait until the appointment?
No, but why have they changed the order?
Okay.
Is the question we are asking?
Yes.
Why have they changed the order?
Yes.
In the same intrigues that are at play right now, upgrading judges from the Court of Appeal with supersonic speed to the Supreme Court, so that they will go and wait for the case at the Supreme Court, the case that they adjudicated upon at the Court of, is that ever done? Why is the case going on appeal? We want somebody else to take a look at this matter. So I get to the court at the Supreme Court and meet the same judges. What am I doing here? The same people who get me injustice at the Court of Appeal are the ones are now see, you are telling me you don't find anything wrong with that. Come on now. Where does that happen in any country in the world? Where does that happen? So if it happens, I will give up on this country. I will give up on this country. You see, because everybody says the judiciary is the last hope of the common man. Everybody says when the judiciary is compromised and fully seen to be so, we are in trouble in this country.
You can't give up on this country because it's the only country we've got. We will continue to work. And
every fabric of this country is being destroyed right now, so I speak.
Yes.
Every fabric. The military commanders, they say that the reason why they are unable to contain Boko Haram is because they don't have enough weapons. Now, what happened to the $1 billion that the president took, all right, to arm under the guys that he wants to use it to arm the military? $1 billion. $1 billion. You know how much that is? We are talking about 360 billion naira. All right, to arm the military, and yet we hear of soldiers who go on a war because they are afraid of the weapons that the Boko Haram carry. They don't have enough weapons. All right, every fabric of our society is being decimated.
Okay, Pastor Collins, these are thoughts and opinions that you are entitled to. They do not in any way represent the views of the station, of the
organization. Oh yes, they are my personal opinions.
We need to establish that. Now, quickly,
them.
We're just on the verge of concluding this discussion. There's been a debate about what in the world may have necessitated the creation of an economic advisory council to Mr. President, whereas there's already in existence a National Economic Council that reports to the Vice President, who reports to the President, Pastor Awosage.
Thank you very much. Politics, it's obvious it's politics. And when you're no longer beating the drums of the big daddies, so you are bound to be hamstrung, so to say. Just a joke in that regard, but it's unfortunate. It's really, really unfortunate to have a situation like this. It's like saying you don't have regard for the man who had been there before. And it was even done in this very, very unceremonious way and making it look like we can do and undo. And I think it's a bad situation we are in. Honestly, I have so much so much to say with that, you know, with respect to this, but I think in all we say and keep saying, what are we really doing? We are talking about the economy, and why I'm particularly happy is that Professor Yemi Osibanjo, a very senior lawyer and vice president, you know, he's part of the government. So whatever is going on, come on, you should
Speak up.
Speak up and then enjoy yourself. Because we Nigerians have been complaining. You've been going around the country, giving trader money and all of that, telling us a professor of law, a senior advocate, vice president, and in short, jumping on Okada, moving everywhere, you know. It was interesting that trader money could survive and then people could. And I remember when he was even acting president and he talked about the modular refineries and a whole lot of thoughts and things. Nigerians even said, well, it appears when President Muhammad Buhari is not around, you seem to perform better. I honestly know what's happening. The man had been limited and it's obvious he cannot really function. He cannot really bring out his own personal ideas. And the Constitution made that so. You know, he's vice president. You have to follow the...
You can't have two captains.
Two captains in one.
Yeah.
That's basically the situation.
Yeah.
But what is playing out now, I know it's political, and I know maybe they want to... His relevance is becoming too bogus in the public, and you know, we are talking about the West and, you know, him becoming president or something. Some persons may be talking along that line. He's a gentleman, and I think we need, for one, somebody who can present his certificate that we can feel and handle. Probably that is why.
I see Pastor Collins all the,
you know, Pastor Collins is here, and also he wants somebody who can feel their certificate. So I think, and the other folks are looking at, you know, this. I can see Adam Soshomole and Erufai, big board somewhere around town.
Yeah, I've seen
two
that
juniors,
too.
two nice guys, two fighters, and all of that.
Yeah.
And some other folks are saying that Tinubu is coming. A whole lot of. I believe what is playing out is political.
Okay.
He's a decent man and a man that will not want to speak against where he is working, so to say. I remember he traveled the other time and he said the insurgency and all of that is overblown and all of that, but he got back home and his pastors were kidnapped and adopted. So he's that kind of person. And it has not helped him in any way because I expect him to speak, you know, speak up. Nigerians are asking questions, what's happening? He's quiet and they don't want to say anything. Speak up. The worst case that happened, resign and walk away.
By stand of Salih. Yes. I mean, you've been looking at that, the Constitution. Yes. I'm trying to find maybe the possibility of finding where it's written there that you have the Economic Advisory Council. Is it there?
The president is empowered in sections 130 to 152
to do and undo.
To do and undo. Okay. And by section 305, you can issue proclamation. If you go back in perspective, President Obasanjo declared state of emergency in Ekiti and the north. He can do and undo. He is acting intra vires, not ultra vires. So if anybody thinks he has acted ultra vires more than his power by changing the Economic Council, he should seek redress. I've looked at the Constitution. President is acting within his powers. He can change an Economic Council. He can issue proclamation. He can issue a state of emergency, and etc., etc. So I don't see anything wrong. In fact, if you look at the duties of ministers, you can even assign some ministries to the vice president. So there is no cause for alarm. It's only people are prejudicial. They are already judgmental when the president takes an action within his powers as section 130 to 152 and 305. So notice spoil. The president is in order, is acting intra vires.
Okay. Pastor Collins, you share the same sentiments with Vice Adam Salih.
You know I definitely don't. You know I definitely don't.
You were smiling. When I was maybe you had concurred or something.
The paucity of the statement he was making.
Okay.
Yes, the president is at liberty to appoint or disappoint anybody he wants to. I mean, we have mentioned the fact that this constitution and the framers of it is very defective in many ways. All right, this is a military framed constitution, and they were doing it in such a way as to benefit a military leader. So we inadvertently created a very powerful president. In fact, many have spoken of him as being the most powerful president in the world. All right, and that's unfortunately so, because power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. All right, so I cannot imagine that we're giving so much power to one man. And if you find a man who takes on that power and chooses to abuse it, you'll be in big trouble. And I dare say that that's where we're finding ourselves right now. Many of us, I mean, I heard him say that, Professor Osinbajo is a gentleman. And I'm sorry, I disagree. That he resigned. He's not a gentleman at all. If he is, with all this rubbish that they are giving to him, I would resign. The man is a professor of law. He's a senior advocate of Nigeria. He's a senior pastor of the Redeemed Christian Church of God. A man in that capacity is not hungry.
At all.
All right? What is he looking for? The trader money that they used to bamboozle the bank, they gave it to him. Don't be spending. Not knowing that a day will come when they will tell him they want to ask auditors to audit how you spend the money. How do you audit trader money? The money that was given out without receipts. How do you audit it? Now they are going to audit that money, all with a view to rubbishing the man. And I hear that his godfather, Tinubu, has now washed his hands off the man and say he has no hands whatsoever in what the man, it's in the news. That he has no hands whatsoever in what the man is undergoing, that the man is on his own. And the reason is this. Because it is being speculated that Tinubu himself has, in fact, it's not a speculation anymore. It has left the realms of speculation. That he has presidential ambitions himself.
No, we've not heard from the man.
Well, no, he's not a horse, he's a man. I have not heard from the horse, but I've heard from the man. All right, now, the speculation is very strong that he himself has presidential ambition. And it is believed that Osinbajo is there to represent his interest. Now, if that is the case, if you whittle down Osinbajo's powers and influence, then of course, by proxy, you have whittled down the man's powers. And so, Tinubu has, by wisdom, quickly washed his hand off the man and say, if you deal with that man, you're not dealing with me. He's on his own. All right, he's not representing me. That's by wisdom. But everybody knows that Tinubu was the one. Most of the people in office, I mean, even the Speaker of the House of Reps is his boy. All right, we have many of them like that who are his boys, and he has placed many of his, prodigies, in very strategic places, awaiting when he would need to cash in on, his godfatherism. But I would, in Osinbajo's position, not take one day longer in that position. I would get out of that place if it's the kind of gentleman that my brother here mentions that he is. I do not believe he's a gentleman, because even I believe he contradicted himself just now when he said, the man went to the US and said that this issue of Boko Haram has been over bloated, and then he came back and ate the humble pie and said we are in trouble in this country. A gentleman won't do that. A gentleman won't do that. Why do they always give him the rough edge, the rough handle of the knife to hold? Anytime there is a tough job to do, he's the one they send to go on condolence visits. He's the one they send to go and tell lies.
Let me pause Pastor Collins Okonovo now. He raised an issue which I said we're going to look at as much as time will permit us to, which is that Mr. President has said, well, the Chief of Staff will now oversee the ministers. And that has also brought up the issue that, okay, are we not having two vice presidents?
But why did you contest that thing, as I said
and another appointed? Because I told you,
why did you contest
I told you I was going to come back to it. So let me get Pastor Salute. Yeah.
I'm always surprised that when the president makes an appointment, it is either interpreted with suspicion, etc. Tangentially, the issue of Mango, he was appointed. That's what the Constitution says. The president can appoint, the Senate is to confirm. 3 times Magu appeared before the Senate at the era of Bukola Saraki. It was not confirmed. The Senate even went or traversed trying to write to the president to bring them another person. But the president will not do that. He can appoint senators to confirm. If the Senate did not confirm, Magu is bearing the prefix acting chairman, and the work is going on. They have been using acting and 2 years, 3 years, 4 years.
So there's nothing wrong with this.
He has appointed.
Yes.
Is to appoint him, which he has done.
Yes.
Senate is to confirm. If it's confirmed, he will remove the prefix acting. If it's not confirmed, he will write acting.
That would be a record, really.
And he's doing it.
It would be a record as the highest serving acting EFCC.
He continues to act because it's not confirmed.
No, but of course, this Senate will confirm him.
Huh?
This Senate will definitely confirm him.
Oh, thank you very much.
The client Senate.
Then the word, the preference acting will be removed.
It's the client Senate.
Let me get Sage.
Economic team, non-economic team of minister, they are within the intra-various power of
Mr. President. All right, Mr.
according to the Constitution.
Yeah. Yes. Constitutional to have chief of staff supervise ministers.
That is speculative. It's not in the Constitution. The vice
I'm asking a question.
The vice president is the other side of the coin.
Okay.
You cannot contest election, fill your INEC form without putting the name of the vice president. The vice president is the de facto and de jure second person in the country, not chief of staff.
Okay. All right. Mr. Osage, over to you now.
Yes.
Yeah.
You ask if the
vice president is there, but now the chief of staff is to supervise ministers.
The clearing house.
Yes.
It's a new operation. In the recent.
But Sir says the president has the power to appoint.
You know, like we
in accordance with the law.
Yeah, the constitution is there. He has the power to do and undo. Okay. But commonsensical, we should allow things to be, because we can. You know, there are things that bring up. We not say this is the law and all of that. The vice president, as it were, ordinarily should supervise. But if it pleases the president now, because the law, the constitution supports him, he has the power to do that.
But so Pastor Collins here, you know, the harbinger of good news. Let me put it that way. You brought this in.
Buhari said that in this second dispensation, he's going to work with people he knows.
Okay.
And you know, even the vice president's name, he does not know. He calls him Musibande. All right? So he's going to rely on Abakari, who he knows, I mean, way back home. All right? And you can be sure that much as we know that the vice president, by law, is the second person in the hierarchy of government. But right now, what we do have, we have two, in terms of operation, we have two vice presidents, one vice president admin, the other vice president social activities for convenience and monetary money, which we have also been taken from him. All right? Because now, it is obvious, if I need clearance from the president on any issue, the person who grants me access to the president is the one I will respect more. All right? If I don't have to talk to the vice president in order to access the president, and I don't need the president, vice president at all, and I'm in the government, I have no regard for him. I will regard the man who gives me access to him. All right? And so, by the time you say that Abba Kyari is the one who will grant access to the president, you have elevated him above the vice president. And there's no question about it. Okay. Besides, the agencies before that the vice president was superintending have now been sent to directly report to the president. All right, so if the man had wings before, I can assure you that he's armless now. He's going around without arms right now. His arms have been clipped. All right, and what is left now for his limbs to be taken off? So be completely crippled. So be completely crippled.
Of our discussions on TMI, Pastor Collins, thank you. Pastor Osage, thank you. Sir Adam Sali, thank you for coming.
You didn't thank me.
I started with you. I started with you, Pastor Collins. I started with you.